Hello there. So, I participated in an arm wrestling competition the 11th of July. I checked in at around 11:45 a.m., 15 minutes before the registration closed. I had registered online months prior, but excuse my Maltese Shih Tzu. She's currently fighting a sock, so that's something she does. You might hear her in the background. She's adorable. Anyways, get back on track. I had an absolute blast. Now, I'm a complete novice. I'm a complete amateur. That was my first experience actually arm wrestling. Okay. Now, obviously, you always have events where you arm wrestle with your buddies when you're having a good time, you're younger, you just, there's girls around or whatever. You have some silly reason to arm wrestle, or it's just a fun thing to do. Apparently, at one point when I was in the schoolhouse, I kept, back when I was in the military and I was training as a student, I kept bugging all my peers saying, hey, man, you want to arm wrestle to pass the time? And not very many people took me up on that. I wasn't even that big or as big as I am right now back then, but regardless. This competition was in-state. It was still a far drive, but it was phenomenal. Even though I only had... So the way it was set up, I was in the 200-pound to 220-pound category of weight class. And I was also going into novice because I thought to myself, I am a novice. I have no technical knowledge. I have no real experience arm wrestling. And I was like, better play it safe and just dip my toe in the water. And that's what I did. And I ended up only getting to compete with two people. One guy I'll refer to as Big John. Other guy, Tall Brody. Okay, that's their names, and I'm just describing their characteristics. John was jacked. He was very jacked. And this is the type of jackedness, is that a word? Jackedness? I don't know. This is the type of jacked where you don't build this muscle in the gym because the muscles that were large on his arm and his forearm were, built from small, minute, monotonous, repetitive tasks over the course of years and years. Now, he said he'd been arm wrestling for 2 years, so I'm sure he started doing some arm wrestling exercises over the course of those 2 years, right? But the arms he did not build in 2 years. He had those arms prior, and he's probably just, strengthened some weak points he had. And he was my first competition on the right arm, and I was like, okay. I said to the ref, I'm new, bear with me, just help me out, help me do the best I can. And, he gave me a few pointers, and I was like, oh, okay. I didn't realize that you're not supposed to have your arm flat on the table. Like you can, but that's like a very poor technique choice, right? Because I sacrificed almost all of my leverage doing that, because apparently you're supposed to have your arm up like at an angle like this while you're meeting somebody at the table. Also, something I didn't know is that you're supposed to fight for the grip before you are even starting to wrestle. You're supposed to start fighting for the grip, moving your elbow around, trying to get some type of dominant position at that setup. And that was completely news to me. And, I just had a elbow straight on the table. Like the way John presented his arm to me before his elbow even touched the pad, he just stuck it out there like this to meet my wrist. And I just went boop, boop. And we just kind of, the ref went ahead and, made sure our positions were the correct parts, whatever. And we went, go. And he immediately went, and I was like, oh, whoa, this guy's strong, man. He's strong, which made sense because I was like, wow, this guy looks really strong. But he didn't flash pin me. And that felt incredible, knowing that despite the fact that this guy is so obviously strong and has these jacked muscles and, and he's clearly got some technique, but he just wasn't able to flash pin me. No. Come here, girl. Come here. Sorry, my dog's. I don't trust her. She's 7, believe me. Okay, but so I was doing that, and I think I lasted about 30 seconds before he finally pinned me on the right arm. And I was like, wow, that was crazy, but that was a good thing. That was good. I enjoyed it. It was a great experience. He beat me, but it didn't feel like I was just completely getting nothing out of the experience, you know? Like, it was a hard-fought pin, and I loved it. And, I went down off the table. I was like, oh, man, all right. And then all of a sudden, I'm being told I have to go right back up there. I'm like, huh? I just went. My arm's cooked. It's exhausted right now. I gave it everything it had. And I went ahead and arm wrestled Tall Brody. Now, Brody's not particularly jacked. I think he's actually younger than me, which would make sense typically. But tall fellow, long arms, long forearms, large hands, that sort of thing. And so we went up into the position, but my arm was just so weak, and I had the exact same technique flaws when I went into it with Brody, and he just pinned me. Basically, he didn't flash pin me, but it was pretty quick, And I was like, darn, but I shook his hand, I was a good sport about it. And then we went, and I waited, because I only had the 2 matches because there was only 2 people that were competing with me in this bracket, right? And then eventually I got to do the left, and the left was just leaps and bounds better for me. Leaps and bounds, which is interesting because I am right-handed. I'm not left-handed, I'm right-handed. So what I did, obviously what the ref did was when I went with Big John again on the left, I lasted pretty much about as long as I did with the right. But the truth is that John had to, put in a lot more effort. He had to strain himself. I think he was cross-competing in different brackets, so he was getting more worn down and more tired out than me, obviously. But at the same time, I think he had enough time to rest in between his competitions with other people. So he was fresh by the time we arm wrestled each other on the left. And I lasted about as long as I did on the right. And he really had to put everything into the tank to take my left arm down. My left arm's apparently stronger than my right, and I had just as bad technique as I did when I started with the right. Now, after this match, the ref, Ukrainian fellow, cool guy, said, "Hey man, I can tell you weren't kidding when you said this was your first time arm wrestling." I was like, "Well, yeah, I mean it." And he explained to me that you can have your arm up like this, and he explained to me that you want to kind of bring your arm with your torso, and I was like, oh yeah, that's right. That's hi cutie. That's right, of course. How silly of me. Why didn't I do that? I've been watching all these people arm wrestle for 2 hours, and it didn't pick up on it. Primarily, the reason was because I was scared of breaking the rules. I was scared of getting a foul. I was scared of being told, you're doing it wrong, which ironically I was doing it wrong. I just didn't get any fouls for the way I was doing it wrong. And so after I got pinned on the left the first time with John, I went to go see Tall Brody, not immediately. Next up, it was John and Tall Brody. So instead of me immediately going to Brody right after John, this time John would be immediately going to Brody. So I was able to recover on my left a little bit, thankfully. And, frankly, the first time John pinned Brody, it was a little bit more of a struggle, but on the left arm, he did it very quickly and very easily. I don't know if Brody was competing with other people, and maybe that's why he was a little bit, less fresh. But point is, pinned him, very good technique. Then it was me and Brody who were going. The truth is, Brody really did not exert himself that much with John, so I think he was still pretty fresh. And, we went to it, and he tried pinning me, but this time I had my arm up, and I went with my arm, and I was like, oh, okay. And kind of like learning how to drive a stick-shift car for the first time ever, the dots started to click in my head. And I was slowly just bringing my arm to the other opposite end of the table, and I just inch by inch, millimeter by millimeter. I was not getting tired at all. I was not getting drained. He was, and I just cranked his arm back like a wrench, and I won. And I was like, I won? No way. And I got to go ahead and watch all of my matches with the live stream. Leia. Okay, you're good, girl. She's on the couch. I got to watch all my matches on the live stream or later on, so I could look at how I did and what I did wrong, what my opponents were doing. And, and then right after that, since that I had beaten Brody and John had beaten Brody, he was out, and so it was me and John. So I was basically going to John a second time with the left arm. And we went, and I think he beat me pretty quickly, frankly. He got me pretty good, pretty quick. But it was great, and I loved it. Now for my thoughts, after action report. Frankly, I went into this with no table time at all. I didn't have access to a table. I didn't know anyone with a table. I tried to meet some people who might have had one. Didn't pan out. I ended up forking over $145 for a arm wrestling table. And yeah, it's expensive. And yeah, I'm basically broke. Or I'm living my life as if I'm broke. But, I mean, this is something that I've decided I want to take seriously. And I cannot be dependent upon others to use their tables. And there are no clubs anywhere near Kearney, so I realized I had to be the one to start a club where I live, Kearney, Nebraska. I don't care if people know about that. It's fine. And so I went ahead and I started one on Facebook. I got some people in it already that I invited from my job I work at. I work at Planet Fitness. It's like it's a gym, basically. Nice gym. But I got the table together. We're gonna get more table time. I'm gonna get all the things that I need to get better. Before all that, I did about 6 months of extensive niche forearm training. So basically, I would just use this gripper at the lower setting, and I would use the bottom 3 fingers. Don't mind that, it's old. These bottom 3 fingers, so that I'd be focusing on the pinky pad. I'd be using this band in a variety of ways. I'll just show you what I'm doing with them. I usually do it when I'm standing, and I learned this from Devin Laird. He had like a short on YouTube, and I was like, oh, I could do that. And as you can see, it's wrapped completely around my hand. And I'd be standing normally, but then I would just go ahead and I'd lift it up. And you can actually see the forearm muscle contracting as I lift it up. And I would do with a band. This would be like more of like a recovery thing. And another thing I would do with the band is I would target my thumbs. See how it's wrapped on the back end of my palm? And I'm just bringing my thumb down. It's getting a good contraction on the thumb. It's good, and you just do that for 50 reps, 60 reps, 70 reps. You get a good blood flow, good pump. This is what I primarily use. This is a 15-pound dumbbell. Honestly, I'm thinking about getting something a little bit lighter, like a 14-pound dumbbell, because ironically, I think training with arm wrestling and training the forearms is a very, very specific thing. I don't think it's about brute force in regards to just training. Because otherwise then the bodybuilders and the guys lifting super heavy weights would be the ones with the strongest forearms, but they're just not. And we actually see this in real life, mechanics, construction workers, carpenters, people that work with their hands, literally hours upon hours upon hours upon hours their entire lives. They just develop this incredible hand grip strength and forearm strength. Everything past the elbow is just completely strong and resilient. So that's basically, and I got all these ideas from this guy called Roger C. Love that guy's content. Dude has got some freaking forearms. I don't know if I really want my forearms to be that big, to be honest, because my wife says that they would be weird, that they would look goofy, or they'd look what's the term? Not goofy. Just overly ballooned, uncanny, unnatural. I remember I made a video in the past talking about the possibility of Roger C. being unnatural. I don't think he is. I think he's just a guy who's completely and utterly dedicated to his sport, and that he's going to be a very, very hard person to beat in the future. I'm intending to be completely and utterly determined to be a great in this sport. 6 months is not enough for me. I want to keep training. The next route I'll be doing is August 15th, and that's actually going to be only about 40 miles from where I live, thankfully. I found out about both of these competitions, thankfully, from ChatGPT, so it has some use for me. It has a little bit of use. My diet is very simple. I try to avoid the sweets. I try to avoid the carbs, and I just try to eat primarily meat and eggs and a little bit of cheese or pepperoni with the eggs, just to make the eggs less monotonous and to get in a little bit more nutrition. Obviously, eggs are very nutrient dense, but they're very filling. And if you eat like 10 eggs, that's not a whole lot of nutrients for one meal for me, because I can eat a pound of ground beef. That's going to be much more nutrition than 10 eggs, pound for pound. But anyways, that's basically my diet. It's low carb. It's plant-free as much as it can be. I still have energy drinks, but like they're the ones that are supposedly better than the regular ones. Are they better? I don't know, but I'll find out. But that's been my experience. I'm gonna be working on my dead hang, from like a pull-up bar with just my fingers, because I think that'll thicken my fingers. And I feel like my fingers were actually a bit of a weak point in this, Like my arm was my saving grace. It was very strong. It was very hard for John to pin my right and my left the first times we bouted with each other. So that's something that's good. I intend to capitalize on those strengths, and I'm also just gonna work on the weak links, right? This video is already getting too long, and I know people are not going to be interested in watching these longer videos. That's fine. So I'm just going to stop it now. But this is basically what I've been doing, and we're going to keep doing it.